It starts casually. Joe Rogan leans forward in his chair, eyebrows slightly raised, that familiar expression of curiosity on his face. I mean, fasting for an entire month?
No food, no water, not even water during daylight hours.
Why would God want you to go hungry? The question isn't hostile. It's the kind of question that comes from a place of genuine interest, the same way you'd ask an astrophysicist why black holes behave the way they do, or a Navy SEAL why they put themselves through Hell Week. It's curiosity, raw and unfiltered. The guest across from him smiles. Because this very question has been asked for centuries by people all over the world, and the answer is never as simple as because God said so. Joe's voice lingers in the room, the cameras are rolling, the audience listening, and for a moment there's silence. Then the narrator steps in, not to lecture, but to guide, to take the viewer by the hand and say, "Let's look deeper." Ramadan, the narrator begins, is one of the most sacred times in the Islamic calendar. It's a month where Muslims all over the globe, from the busy streets of New York to remote villages in Indonesia, rise before dawn, eat their pre-fast meal, and then abstain from food, drink, and even certain habits until the sun sets. Joe interrupts with his signature tone of disbelief. Wait, so literally nothing? Not even a sip of water? The guest nods. Nothing. It's complete abstention. To someone unfamiliar, it sounds like pure self-denial, a kind of religious endurance test. But as the narrator explains, there's something more ancient and profound beneath the surface. Fasting in Ramadan isn't about punishment. It's about perspective. It's about breaking the relentless cycle of consumption we all live in, without realizing it. It's about stepping away from the constant feed of food, of entertainment, of distractions, and learning to face the quiet. Joe tilts his head, almost like he's mentally bookmarking the point. Okay, so it's not just about starving yourself. There's a mental thing going on here, exactly. It's mental. It's spiritual. It's emotional. Because in Islam, the fast is not just from the mouth, it's from the ego, from anger, from harmful words, from indulgences that pull you away from self-control. The narrator's tone shifts, growing more intimate, as if speaking directly to the audience. Imagine this. You wake up before dawn, the world's still silent. You take that last sip of water, that last bite of bread, knowing it will be the last until evening. As the day unfolds, hunger arrives, thirst tightens your throat. But you resist, not because you can't eat, but because you choose not to. Every minute becomes a reminder that you are in control, not your body's impulses. Joe chimes in, that's like training your brain to tell your body, I'm in charge here. And in a way, yes, that's the perfect analogy. But there's another layer. Fasting is empathy training. When your stomach growls, you remember the millions for whom hunger isn't a spiritual exercise. It's daily life. It's not a test they take once a year. It's their reality. The narrator brings the listener into that perspective. For most of us, hunger is a choice. We can end it instantly with a trip to the kitchen. But in Ramadan, Muslims experience, even if just for a few hours a day, what the poorest feel constantly, and that awareness changes you. Joe leans back in his chair, processing. So, it's like, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're connecting with other people's struggles. The guest nods. Exactly. You begin to see food, water, time, even your own words, as blessings you once took for granted. The conversation shifts, but the narrator pulls us back to the opening question. Why would God want you to go hungry? The answer is unfolding. It's not hunger for the sake of hunger. It's hunger that teaches. Hunger that humbles. Hunger that wakes up parts of you that comfort and routine have kept asleep. The visuals on screen in this moment might show people breaking their fast. The adhan, the evening call to prayer, echoing through a golden-lit city street. Families gathered, children passing plates of dates, strangers offering water to one another. Joe watches a clip like this on his monitor and remarks, "That's wild, man." Everyone in sync, like the whole city's heartbeat changes at the same time. And he's right. In Ramadan, entire communities move together. They wake before the world, they endure the day, and when the sun dips below the horizon, they break fast together. It's a rhythm that unites millions in a single shared act, not out of compulsion, but out of devotion. The narrator's voice grows warmer. In the West, we talk a lot about self-improvement, about hacking the body and mind for better performance. But for Muslims, Ramadan isn't a hack. It's a command that's been in place for over 1400 years, one that reshapes not just your health, but your heart. Joe smirks. So it's like the ultimate mental, physical, and spiritual boot camp, but designed by God. A laugh, a nod, but also a deepening respect in his tone. And that's the first shift in understanding. What seemed like an odd religious restriction is beginning to look like intentional, holistic human training, the kind of discipline that builds a stronger person from the inside out. But as the narrator teases, we've only just begun to scratch the surface. Because behind the hunger, there's a secret embedded in the Quran itself, a single phrase that explains exactly why fasting exists. And once you understand it, you'll never look at Ramadan the same way again. The camera lingers on Joe's face, curiosity, anticipation, and the audience feels it too, knowing that the next revelation is about to go much deeper. Joe Rogan leans in, still riding that curiosity from the first part of the conversation. All right, so if it's not just about hunger, what's the real point? What's actually going on here? The guest smiles, because that's the exact question Muslims themselves are encouraged to reflect on every Ramadan. The narrator steps back in, their voice steady and inviting. To understand fasting, you have to stop thinking of it as an act of deprivation, and start seeing it as a form of training. Joe raises his eyebrows. Training for what? The narrator continues, training for life, for patience, for empathy, for self-control. You see, we live in a world of constant indulgence. Food when we want it, entertainment whenever we're bored, opinions blurted out without thought. Ramadan is the opposite. It is a pause button, one you have to consciously press every single day for a month. Joe nods, slowly. So it's like discipline on steroids, but with a spiritual angle. Exactly. But unlike any workout, this isn't about physical appearance. It's about the invisible muscles, the ones that hold your character together when life gets hard. The narrator's voice softens. When you go without food or water, your body starts to send signals. Cravings, thirst, fatigue. Your instinct is to give in. But in fasting, you override that instinct. You remind yourself, I am more than my urges. That's discipline in its purest form. Not just for a few hours in the gym, but all day, every day. For an entire month. Joe chuckles. Man, most people can't even give up sugar for a week. The guest smiles knowingly. That's why Ramadan feels impossible to outsiders, but also why it's so transformative to those who practice it. And here's the twist. It's not only the body you train, it's the mind, because in Islam, breaking the fast isn't just about eating again. It's about making sure you didn't break your patience, your kindness or your moral boundaries, while you were hungry. The narrator paints a vivid picture. Imagine you're fasting, and someone cuts you off in traffic. Your first reaction might be anger, a sharp word, a horn blast. But then you remember I'm fasting, and in that moment you swallow your pride along with your anger. That is fasting too. Joe whistles under his breath. That's like emotional control. I can see how that's harder than not eating. Exactly. Because anyone can stop eating for a few hours. But to guard your thoughts, your words, your actions, even while tired, thirsty, and hungry, that's the real challenge. The narrator continues, this is why Ramadan fasting is holistic. It's not just a physical cleanse, but a mental and spiritual reset. It asks you to break bad habits, to cut back on gossip, to stop wasting time on things that don't matter, and instead to fill your hours with prayer, charity, and reflection. Joe nods slowly, his voice thoughtful now. So you're basically reprogramming your whole day-to-day mindset? Yes. Because outside of Ramadan we operate on autopilot. We eat when we're hungry, we talk when we're angry, we scroll when we're bored. Ramadan snaps you out of autopilot and forces you to make intentional choices. And here's where it gets even more profound. The act of fasting isn't just for the strong, the healthy, the elite. It's for everyone who can safely do it. From the poorest farmer to the most powerful leader, the rules are the same. No shortcuts, no exception. In that way, Ramadan becomes the ultimate equalizer. The narrator's tone deepens. In a world obsessed with status, wealth, and comfort, Ramadan strips all that away. The rich man's stomach growls the same way as the poor man. The CEO and the janitor break their fast with the same water, the same date fruit. In fasting, all are equal before God. Joe leans back, letting that sink in. That's kind of beautiful, actually. No other system forces that kind of shared experience. And here's where the emotional weight lands. Because when you experience that equality every day for a month, it changes the way you see other people. You can't look at the hungry the same way. You can't ignore injustice the same way. You can't waste blessings the same way. The narrator concludes this segment with a quiet intensity. So why does God want you to go hungry? Maybe it's because hunger has a way of sharpening, not just the senses, but the soul. It pulls you closer to humility, closer to gratitude, closer to each other, and closer to the one who gave you all of it, in the first place. Joe glances toward the camera, half smiling, half serious. All right, I'm starting to get it now. But you said there's a verse in the Quran that actually spells out the purpose. I want to hear. The guest nods, ready to open that door, and with that the narrator's voice shifts to a tone of anticipation. Because inside the Quran lies a single phrase that doesn't just explain Ramadan, it explains the very reason humans need discipline at all. The room falls silent for a moment. The guest leans forward, as if holding something precious. This is the verse, he says, his voice steady, deliberate. And then he recites it in Arabic, the sounds flowing like something ancient, carrying weight far beyond translation. Kutiba alaykum asiyama. Kutiba alaykum asiyama kama. Kutiba alaykum asiyama kama. Kutiba alaykum asiyama kama kutib. What's it mean? The guest smiles gently. It means fasting has been prescribed for you, as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may attain taqwa. Joe blinks. Okay, so taqwa, that's what exactly? Here's where the narrator steps in. Voice warm yet deliberate, like someone peeling back layers of meaning. Taqwa is one of those Arabic words that refuses to be trapped in a single English word. People translate it as piety, or God consciousness, or being mindful of God. But it's more than that. It's living every moment, as if God is right there with you. Because He is. It's the constant awareness that your actions, your words, your thoughts, all matter. Joe nods slowly. So fasting is like a tool to get into that headspace. Exactly. Because when you strip away your usual comforts, when you feel hunger and thirst, when you're forced to slow down and watch your impulses, you begin to remember that you are more than a consumer, more than a body chasing its cravings. You are a soul accountable and alive. The narrator continues. Notice how the verse doesn't say fast so you can suffer. It doesn't say fast so you can punish yourself. It says fast so that you may attain taqwa. The hunger, the thirst, they are not the goal. They are the means to reach something far greater. A life lived with purpose, clarity and closeness to God. Joe's expression shifts, less skepticism now, more intrigue. That's actually deep. So it's not even about the act itself, it's about who you become because of it. Exactly. The narrator leans into that point. Think about it, anyone can go without food. But to turn that into a spiritual transformation, that's the art of Ramadan. Every time you resist the urge to eat, drink, or lash out, you're building a muscle in the soul, the muscle of taqwa. Joe chuckles softly. Man, that's like spiritual weightlifting. The analogy works, because like lifting, the growth comes from resistance. The more you resist your lower impulses, the stronger your higher self becomes. And here's the remarkable thing. The Quran points out that fasting wasn't invented by Islam. The verse says it was prescribed for those before you, meaning people of earlier faiths, Jews, Christians and others, also had fasting as part of their tradition. The narrator's tone shifts to an almost storytelling cadence. This connects you not only to God, but to the entire human story of worship. You're doing something prophets and saints have done for thousands of years. You're part of a chain, not just of Muslims, but of all believers before you. Joe raises his brows. So it's like a shared ancient practice, across religions. The guest nods. Exactly. The form might differ, but the goal is the same. Discipline that brings you closer to God. This is where the emotional weight of taqwa lands. It's not a vague spiritual mood, it's a lifestyle. It's what makes someone pause before cheating, lying or harming another person. Not because they fear getting caught by people, but because they know God is watching. The narrator lowers their voice, speaking as if directly to the listener's conscience. Taqwa is what makes a person think twice before taking more than their share, before speaking words they'll regret, before betraying a trust. It's the quiet voice that says, God sees you. Remember who you are. Joe leans forward. So the whole month of fasting is like a boot camp for building that awareness. So it sticks with you even after Ramadan. Yes. That's the beauty of it. You're not meant to fast just for 30 days.
and then go back to normal. Ramadan is designed to recalibrate you, so that when it's over you carry Taqwa into the rest of your life. The narrator's voice swells slightly, inviting the viewer to picture it. A man who used to lash out in anger now holds his tongue. A woman who used to waste hours scrolling now spends that time in prayer. A teenager who never thought about the poor now gives in charity. This is Taqwa in action, and fasting is the workshop where it's forged. Joe sits back in his chair, visibly impressed. I get why you called it ancient wisdom now. It's not just spiritual, it's like psychological conditioning too. And he's right. Modern science has only recently begun to study the link between self-control, mindfulness, and overall life satisfaction. But here in the Quran, the blueprint has been sitting for over. The narrator leans into the cliffhanger for the next part, and here's where it gets even more fascinating. Because while the Quran gave the purpose, science is now proving the physical and psychological benefits of fasting in ways that would have stunned people centuries ago. Benefits that go beyond the soul straight into the mind and body. Joe's eyes widen. All right, now you've got me. What's the science say? The camera cuts, the music swells, and we transition into the next chapter, where faith and modern research meet in perfect harmony. Joe leans back, clearly intrigued, the gears in his mind visibly turning. So fasting has this spiritual side, building taqwa, self-control and all that. But what about the physical? The science behind it? The guest smiles knowingly. That's the fascinating part. For centuries, Muslims have been practicing fasting as a sacred ritual, and now, science is catching up, revealing benefits that modern medicine is only beginning to understand. The narrator's voice takes over, calm, clear, bridging faith and reason. When you fast, your body undergoes a remarkable transformation. Without the constant influx of food, your system shifts from digesting and storing energy to repairing and regenerating cells. This process is called autophagy, your body's natural way of cleaning out damaged cells and renewing itself. Joe raises an eyebrow. Wait, so fasting literally cleans your body, like a reset button? Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. The narrator continues. Research shows that intermittent fasting, like the kind practiced during Ramadan, improves brain function, boosting mental clarity and focus. Many people report heightened awareness during their fast, a state where their mind feels sharper, calmer. Joe chuckles, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. That's wild. I've heard of people using fasting to hack their brains, but this is way older than any biohack. It is, the narrator explains. Long before neuroscience discovered these benefits, Ramadan was teaching millions to harness them through faith and discipline. Fasting strengthens not only the body but the mind, building resilience against stress and improving emotional regulation. Joe nods slowly, connecting the dots. So the hunger pangs aren't just physical tests. They're like mental drills, pushing you to stay calm, focused, and self-aware. Exactly. And there's more. The narrator's tone deepens. Fasting also helps regulate hormones linked to hunger and metabolism, like insulin and leptin. By giving your body a break from constant eating, you reset these systems, which can improve overall health and longevity. Joe's eyes widen. So this ancient practice is actually a full-body reboot? That's insane. It is. And here's the kicker. All these physical benefits enhance the spiritual experience. The narrator elaborates. When your body feels lighter, your mind clearer, and your emotions steadier, you become more receptive to reflection and prayer. This holistic reset, body, mind, and soul is what makes Ramadan fasting so powerful. Joe leans forward, voice quieter now. It's like they were onto something long before modern science, like a blueprint for how to be the best version of yourself. Exactly. And that's the wisdom behind Ramadan fasting. It's not just about hunger or discipline in isolation. It's about aligning your entire being, body, mind, and spirit, in a way that renews and strengthens you. The narrator's voice softens, inviting the audience to imagine the experience. Picture waking before dawn, feeling your body energized, despite the fast ahead. Through the day, your mind remains sharp, emotions steady, as you resist temptation not through force, but through inner balance. And at sunset, when you break your fast, it's not just food you taste, it's gratitude, connection, and renewal. Joe smiles, clearly moved. So it's a full circle experience. Physical discipline opens the door for spiritual growth, which in turn strengthens the physical and mental self. Exactly. And that cycle, that harmony, is the real secret of Ramadan fast. The narrator pauses, then leans into a quiet yet powerful conclusion for this part. Centuries ago, before gyms, before supplements, before neuroscience, this ancient practice was teaching humanity profound lessons about health, resilience, and balance. It's a wisdom that's as relevant today as it was then, perhaps even more so in our fast-paced, distracted world. Joe looks directly into the camera, voice sincere. Honestly, this changes the way I see fasting. It's not just some religious, it's a masterclass in self-mastery, health, and humility, all wrapped into one. As the music swells, the narrator prepares to transition to the final, emotional crescendo. But there's one last piece, the part that transforms fasting from personal discipline into a shared human experience, the part that connects us, not just to ourselves, but to each other. Joe's eyes light up. All right, now you've got me hooked. What's that? The narrator smiles through the words. That's the story of empathy, gratitude, and the bonds Ramadan creates. The true heart of this ancient tradition. Joe leans forward, his voice softer now, almost reflective. So fasting isn't just about you, it's about everyone else too? The guest nods slowly. Exactly. Ramadan is as much about the heart as it is about the body and mind. The narrator's voice sweeps in, warm and immersive. Think about it, when you fast, you experience hunger and thirst in a way you normally don't. That pang in your stomach isn't just a physical sensation. It's a reminder of millions around the world who face hunger every day, not by choice, but because they have no other option. Joe's eyes narrow thoughtfully. That's real perspective right there. It is. And that perspective breeds empathy, the ability to feel with others, to truly understand their struggles. Ramadan teaches you to walk in another's shoes, even if just for a moment, by sharing their hunger, their thirst, their discomfort. The narrator continues, and it doesn't stop there. This shared experience of fasting creates a powerful sense of community. From the pre-dawn meal, called suhoor, to the joyous evening feast, iftar, millions come together to break their fast. Families, friends, even strangers, united by a single act of devotion. Joe smiles, imagining it. That's something the world needs more of. Connection, shared rituals. The narrator's tone grows even more intimate. In those moments, barriers fall away. Differences in race, wealth, nationality, all fade into the background. What remains is a profound sense of belonging, of being part of something greater than yourself. Joe's voice lowers, full of admiration. It's beautiful how something so tough, fasting all day, turns into this collective celebration of gratitude. Exactly, because gratitude is the beating heart of Ramadan. When the sun sets, and the fast is broken, it's not just relief, it's thankfulness. Thankfulness for the food on your plate, the water you drink, the roof over your head. The narrator's words invite you to feel the moment. Imagine the first sip of water after a long day, the sweetness of a date, the laughter around a shared meal. In that instant, every bite carries the weight of gratitude, a sacred reminder of life's blessing. Joe nods slowly, as if tasting that gratitude himself. So fasting rewires you, makes you appreciate what you usually overlook. Yes, and that appreciation extends beyond Ramadan, shaping how you treat yourself and others the rest of the year. The narrator closes with quiet power. Ramadan fasting is a journey, one that moves from hunger, through discipline and self-awareness, to empathy and gratitude. It teaches us that to be truly human is to recognize our shared struggles, to give thanks for what we have, and to connect deeply with one another. Joe looks into the camera, voice filled with respect and wonder. I've spent years learning about all kinds of traditions, but this feels like a blueprint for life. Not just fasting, but how to live with purpose, humility, and heart. The narrator's final words linger like a gentle echo, and that is the timeless wisdom behind Ramadan fasting, a sacred path to becoming our best selves. Together, the screen fades softly, the story ends.